Welcome to the Shannon Wheeler podcast. After spending 30 years in the housing industry, I have come to understand that there are two things that I love to talk about. One of those is real estate, and the other one is people. And so this is a show that is going to focus on those two things. Real estate and all the things that go on in the real estate markets because it's of a lot of interest to me, and people because I've learned, if nothing else, over 30 years' time, that every business is truly a people business. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Tab.
Shannon.
So glad to see you today, man.
You too.
So the other day I was like, I have my white Subaru Outback and you pulled out and you were leaving. And I was like, I guess we just need to have one in that spot each time. I took your spot and I was like, now Tab's going to be like, Wheeler, you took my spot. I come back for lunch.
Well, it's the square. You can never claim a spot here.
True. True.
If you do find a good one, you do want to hold on to it, though.
Yeah, you do kind of want to take that. Yeah.
Till you get the golden ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
$3.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I am so glad that you are here. In case we haven't had a chance to catch up lately, I have this podcast that I do every Tuesday.
All right.
It's right near your office.
Yeah, I noticed.
So I've been meaning to get a hold of you and have you come do the show with me because one of the focuses, that's fine. One of the focuses of my show is intergenerational living.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm a real estate guy, mortgage guy, and that's how we've kind of interacted over a bunch of stuff over the years. But I really feel like that is an area of my practice that is increasing. I'm getting a lot of asks about it. And part of that involves, usually some legal components, maybe not directly in the housing piece. We'll I'll kind of deal with that separately. But I wanted to just have you open up a couple of topics for me that are just general things. Like typically in my practice, I have a scenario A that looks like we have, the grandparents and the children and kind of talk about some of the questions that they ask themselves when they start saying things like, the kids moved to Murfreesboro 10 years ago and they're super happy and now we're ready to retire and we think we're going to start moving that way. And it brings up questions of estate planning and assets and all those sorts of things. So first, I wanted to just have you tell everyone who you are, what you do, and then talk about a couple of those things for a few minutes so they know where to get started with those basic questions.
All right. So my name's Tab Talbot. I'm an estate planning probate attorney here in town, partner of Centerpoint Group law firm, literally right next door to the studio, which I didn't know until you texted me at 7:00 this morning.
I waited an hour.
Yeah. Done a few of these. I feel like Don Rickles. Remember how they bring out Don Rickles when the main guest would not show up? I've done this for a few of these Spread the Positive podcasts. So
that's hilarious.
Try to be available. So we've known each other for a long time.
A long time. I was over in the old building we first met in, which has changed a bunch. But
so I cut my teeth, as you know, doing title work and real estate law and
political background.
Oh, lots of backgrounds. Yeah. Plenty of backgrounds, but really have, 2018 is when I graduated law school, that doesn't seem possible.
I remember that time. I mean, it just,
So I was I was working full time. The twins were born the same year I started my first year of law school. And, so that was kind of a blur between 14 and 18, but, and then I guess in 21 is when I officially went out on my own and started really focusing on estate planning, which looking back now, I realize that's what I always wanted to do.
Yeah. So what was that moment? What was that indicator where you found yourself in a place and you look up and you're like, oh gosh, I was meant to be here all along.
Yeah. I think, what I really enjoy about estate planning is, unlike a lot of law work, what you're generally working with people that they're coming to you with, I wouldn't call it a problem, but they're coming to you with a situation, and you're able to guide them and help them in a, it's almost an advisory consulting role in a way, and how to get them from A to B, and what they can learn on the way is there's some pretty great stuff we can do that they weren't even aware of related to estate planning, whether that's tax advantages or other issues. And so I find the work to be very rewarding, and generally it's good people that you're working with. These are folks that they've built something. They have a legacy to protect, and they want to pass that on to their children. And depending on their situation, that's what I love about it is, everybody, sometimes it is really simple, but everybody really does have their own story, and you get to go through that story with them, and you get to kind of make this roadmap for them that's going to get them to a better place.
So you brought something up that I think's worth kind of touching on for just a second. On the business side of this, right? You've got your people side, and that's really the part of the tagline of the show is, I like talking about real estate and I like talking about people, but I've realized every business is a people business, right?
Yeah, sure.
But on the business side of that, you also have a sort of approach where it's like, hey, you're going to need me for these important decisions and these important things that are complicated. But there's these other parts here that you don't really need to overpay for some of these functions, right? Don't you kind of work with the family to say, hey, there's a few things here we can get done at just a kind of a cost that it's a function.
Yeah.
You really need me spending my time here,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, that happens.
It's not just a rack up billable hours scenario. It's how can we get from point A to point B
Right.
and get there the best way possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not, sometimes I have clients come and I'm just be honest with them, like, this really isn't where you need to spend your money.
Yeah. You've told me that a couple of times.
Right. And part of that comes from just coming from a place that I'm fortunate that the practice has been very successful. And I'm not in a position where I feel like I need to, quote, rack up the bills, right?
Right.
I know this is going to sound corny, but I really do believe this. I really genuinely believe that attorneys have a duty to society to just provide information. And sometimes that's it. Mm-hmm. Not unlike a doctor that, if we all have been guilty of this, our friend or the guy we go to church with, or the RNs, and you're like, hey, I got this thing in my elbow, and it's right. And they're always gracious about that. And they're like, well, it could be this, could be that. And I feel like attorneys are that way too. The law is nebulous. There's so many different rabbit holes and features and practices. And sometimes my answer is, I don't know. You need to talk to an attorney that does that.
Yeah.
But if it's in my bailiwick, I'm happy to just talk about it. And oftentimes we find that, there is something there that we need to address, and let's do it.
I love the idea of sort of a caretaker of this marketplace of legal knowledge. I kind of feel that way in the housing industry.
Yeah.
If you talk to the ones that are the best, the Brad Hopkins of the world. I mean, like I'm going to name some people, but you talk to those people and you get that same sense where they feel like, at the end of the day, I really have to be some sort of caretaker here of this marketplace, and I have a responsibility in that. Yeah. Okay, so when you're talking with families, what's probably, a typical type of scenario, that you're going to help with? Somebody's going to come to you with a scenario A. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally one of the two. Either we're doing estate planning or we're doing probate.
Now, do you typically get contacted first by seniors that are planning at that point, or is it their children that are like, where do you typically get your contact, or does it just vary?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say 98% of all of my clients come from referrals, which is wonderful, as
Yeah.
you know. There's no better way to meet clients than someone that they know and trust is putting
Yeah,
their
if you
trust
don't
in
know
me.
me and you're watching the show, go ahead and put your information in. You'll be the first person I didn't get as a referral ever.
Right,
Probably.
right. Yeah. And so, that's, you start there and then yeah, I mean, typically, like I said, it's more or less one of two things. We know we've needed to do estate planning for a long time and we haven't, or we've had a child. So you'll find in estate planning, it's very common. You got the new families. We've had the children. Oh my God, who's going to take care of these kids if something happens to us?
Yeah, we
Very
got to start thinking about this stuff. Yeah.
Very natural. And then you'll find them 30 years later coming back, right? The wealth has grown. The kids are old now. We're thinking more about legacy.
How much do you interact with a family? Let's say you have a family and they've got a financial advisor, financial planner that they've worked with all this time. How much do you interact with that person in their life? I know a lot of my clients, when they start talking about real estate stuff, now, they're as likely to call Casey Rainey before they are their realtor, and then that gets to me. So,
Yeah.
do you interact with the other professionals in that circle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, financial planners are probably some of my best referral sources.
Kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, right. Because they're doing the same thing. And a lot of financial planners will, as part of their annual review, do you have estate planning, right? And a lot of times the answer is no. And so they'll kind of hammer them on that and be like, you really need to get this done. And here's a few attorneys that I can recommend, that kind of thing. So, and then on the other end of that, if we do end up working with them, depending on what kind of assets that they are managing for them, I'm going to be working with that financial planner anyways to make sure that we get the beneficiaries updated or even the ownership of the asset, depending on what we're talking about. So, yeah, that they're CPAs, same with them. I want to, especially if we're dealing with some complicated estates, definitely want the CPA to give me the thumbs up on what we're doing, because there are tax implications if we're dealing with more sophisticated estates.
So there's really two things I wanted to ask about. One, I don't know if you see this showing up in your world or not. I am seeing intergenerational living, family compound living, homes attached with a breezeway to comply with codes on a little more land. Like, I even think about your house and the lot that your house is on in this easy scenario in which it could be multi-generational. And I mean, like, it could now, like, you could call it that now. I mean, like, but like literally in forethought and planning. So, real estate is kind of the way I see the world.
Yeah.
And it seems like the demographics and the market conditions and everything, we don't predict rates and all those things because it's just a fool's errand, in my opinion. But I feel like this is a thing that's going to be a big part of the market. Do you, when you're doing estate planning, are you hearing this same thing when it comes to where people are setting up shop to live and move and relocate? And is that anything that you hear those conversations?
So I'm with you. I'm seeing this anecdotally just in my own personal life, even in our own neighborhood with the intergenerational living.
Okay.
I've talked to lenders about that have dealt with these kind of like, and you hear, even these ideas about not even necessarily family, but these cohabitating where they're, and not like partners, but like friends, roommates trying to buy houses together, right? Generally speaking, I haven't had to really. What I run into more of is we've got a child that's living in the home, or maybe we have a partner, they're not married, and they're living there, and so we want to create some mechanisms in the owner of the property from an estate planning purpose of giving some protection for those people so that if the owner or the owners pass, we're not immediately kicking these folks out. We're giving some transition adjustment there. And what we're trying to do is reduce friction too,
Okay.
right? Between what can sometimes be not ideal.
Okay, so let me ask this question then. So when I'm counseling families that have come to me, and I've got a situation, I just talked to them yesterday. Daughter, son, 2 kids, 3,000 square foot house in Rutherford County on an acre. Mom, grandma, grandpa, house in Smyrna. Sell, get something they can all live in together, and you start talking about apportioning responsibility, payment, all those things. So that's where I come in.
Yep.
Is I make those plans for that family, and based on what you're telling me, though, I don't think I need to even start that conversation without having them talk to an estate planning attorney, because, I mean, wouldn't you recommend asset contributions from the grandparents' house that sells, that becomes part of this new situation? I mean, it seems to me like if it could go wrong at all, you need to prepare for that. But you know what I mean?
Well, there's a lot of rabbit holes there.
Right. So now I'm thinking, okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that. And without getting too deep in a podcast about it, I one of the questions I would have is who's actually owning the property, right?
So that's what you need to start out with.
Yeah, right. Who are our owners?
If we walk through our eventualities, hey, what if we pass? What if this happens, that happens? Who do we want ownership?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because if everybody's in on it, because that's how they need to afford it, then that's a different set of issues that we've got, as opposed to what I would still say is the traditional, which is, intergenerational living, where either the parent, and when I say parent in this situation, I'm talking older, right? Yeah. They're living with their kids or the kid's spouse, or or you've got young, the younger generation is still, because housing is expensive and they're still living there. What I don't recommend is what we call estate planning through real estate. So, and we would get these calls a lot when I did title work, hey, I want to put the kids on title with me so that the house doesn't have to go through probate. Okay, well, why is that maybe not a good idea?
Oh, okay. No, so before you answer that,
Sure.
That was my last question.
Okay.
We'll finish our time with this because it really gets to a very tricky gray area legal question, and it is, this is your opportunity, like inside information from a real life attorney. So it's like, and I know you may not have a straightforward answer, but I'm assuming that people come to you often with scenarios that they have in their mind of what they want to try to accomplish when it comes to hiding assets, protecting assets from either the government or other persons or any number of things that in their mind they're trying to affect. And let's grant most of it is just normal stuff. So where do you end up finding that line between there is maybe even something legally that could happen here, but I just, how do you wrestle with that? Because I'm sure you probably have to turn work down from time to time because of it. I mean, so this kind of points to what you were just about to get into, which is hey, I want to put my kids on title.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
yeah, it's very common. And not just that, there's also, we want to put it in a trust so the nursing home doesn't take it. Well, that's not, and so what you often, it's actually not hard, Shannon. I listen to them. They come in, they tell me what they have in mind, and I don't tell them they can't do it. I explain to them why that may not be the best reason, and generally they are like, okay, yeah, I agree. Sometimes, on a rare occasion, actually it is not a bad strategy, but it's rare, and so to use those two examples, let's put the kids on the house now. That avoids probate, and I'll just I'll pass on. The kids can get it, and leave it at that. Okay, well, there's a few issues there. One is once you put somebody on title with you, you are now you're in it together from a liability standpoint. So you are inheriting whatever liabilities that your children may have. So specifically, think of divorce issues, creditors, right? That kind of thing. So I have concerns there. Two, if there's a falling out with the kids, you can't just take them off of the title like you can with a will.
Oh, okay. So that is an important point. If you add someone to title, you can't just be like, never mind, and write them off because that person now has equitable interest in that property.
Absolutely. And so they have to voluntarily.
I wonder how many people have done that. I'm just gonna put the kids on there and then they. Yeah. Okay.
And I've advised against that in the past, and it's come back to bite folks. But third, this is just my I love savings part is even if you don't have those two concerns, when you put the child on title with you, they are inheriting what we call your basis. So again, I know it's a podcast, so I'll try to be.
This one's pretty. You can get this. You can lay in this plane.
Okay. So when you buy a piece of property, let's use easy numbers. Let's say you bought the house for $100,000, which 20 years ago was possible.
I mean, Vietnam was almost ready to break out at that time, and not
I
that
remember
bad.
You could
Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
When I was here in college, which was
you could buy a house for $100 then.
20 years ago, you could buy a townhouse. I remember, So, but it's an easy number, okay? So they buy it for $100,000, okay? Now the house is worth $400,000. So now, as you know, when you own a primary residence, there's an exemption for that, and so if you sell that primary residence, we're not worried about capital gains. At that point,
meaning taxes that are going to be owed on the difference between what you paid it for it and what you sold it for.
Right. So in that example, 100, if it's worth 400, we have a $300,000 appreciation. Let's assume we haven't discounted for improvements and all that. Let's just say the appreciation is 300,000. You go to sell the house. We have basically a 20% capital gains to pay, so $60,000.
It's a lot of money.
Right?
It makes a big difference.
I think it's $60,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, not anything you worry about if you're a married couple or even a single person and the appreciation's under a certain amount. Generally doesn't affect folks, although I would argue we need to bump that up. But either way.
I agree.
When you inherit something, you get what's called an automatic step up on that basis. And so when that child inherits this home that's now worth 400, we are raising our basis to 400. And so effectively, if the child turns around and sells it within a few weeks or a few months, they basically there is no appreciation anymore, right? Because the value raised to 400 at the date of death, and they sell it for 400 or whatever. Or if they sell it for 405, then we pay the capital gains on 5,000, right?
Right.
That's what we get as an advantage of inheriting assets. If you put the child on title with you, they don't get that anymore.
All that disappears.
Right. And so you die, and now they sell it. The child is going to pay that gain, that full gain.
So that's $60,000 to avoid probate right off the top.
So here they were. They wanted to avoid probate, paying $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
Right. And
cost them.
Yeah. And the kids are going to be out.
And that's a nasty surprise to get. You don't want that down the road.
Absolutely not.
That's not good. Well, man, I'll tell you, I appreciate you coming by. This is going to be important because I believe the silver tsunami is real. I believe this transfer of wealth and assets is real. I believe that a lot of intergenerational households are going to form up. I believe there's a lot of people that are going to need your services. So I'm glad that you're there for me to be able to send people to.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate you coming by. Again, tell everybody how to reach you and where your office is.
Sure. I'm right next door. we're right here on the square. Again, I'm Tab Talbot with Centerpoint Group, law firm. And you can Google us. I'm not on social media anymore, but it's still easy to find.
Yeah. And
Which
of
is
course,
a good blessing.
if you just want to reach me, I will put you in contact. And thanks for coming in, man. Good to see you.
Happy to help.
Y'all be good.
I'm going to go to Jefferson's now.
Yeah. Grab you some lunch, man.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Tab.
All right. You too, Shannon.
Thank you for spending some time with us.